you very much. Well, it's wonderful to be here with the pharmacists of Australia.
I feel compelled to acknowledge Australians who, unlike me, have been forced to choose between getting vaccinated or losing their job.
Australia has an extremely good record of both addressing and being able to manage the mental health impacts of going through this pandemic compared to other countries around the world.
Firstly, there's Nina, a single mum in her late 30s with 2 children who felt coerced to get jabbed to keep her job as an aged care nurse. Nina came away feeling violated after the first jab. The fact that she felt coerced into getting it left her reliving trauma associated with having been raped when she was 20. She says she feels disgusted in herself that she gave in to the coercion.
The heartache that I am hearing, the harm that I'm hearing from my constituents, people who have lost their jobs, people who are about to lose their jobs, all because they will not be part of, or do not wish to be part of, a provisionally approved medical procedure in this country.
We know in Australia we have one of the lowest death rates from COVID of any country in the world. We have one of the strongest economies that are coming through this pandemic, and we're looking at that front windscreen going into 2022, looking strong going into next year.
These people are now losing their jobs, their livelihoods, and are so distraught, distressed, hurt, because they are being told what to do with their own bodies.
They are facing not only a loss of their job unless they submit to take one of the COVID vaccines, but in many cases they are facing the loss of their career. They are being prohibited to work in their career of choice.
And of course we have one of the highest vaccination rates in the world, which is what we're here to talk about today.
The Prime Minister has clearly stated that vaccinations for COVID-19 will be voluntary. In a letter dated the 6th of September 2021, the Prime Minister states in relation to the vaccine, and I quote, "It will not be compulsory to have the vaccine. The government is clear that vaccination is a personal choice." End quote.
David and Lita, primary school teachers and parents to 3 boys who are on unpaid leave while they wait to see if the mandates change.
I want to thank the pharmacists of Australia for the contribution they've made to this vaccination effort.
There's even a vaccine developer in South Australia who is unable to get an exemption for his own vaccine, despite the fact it's been approved for use in foreign countries, and he will be sacked from his job.
That we have medical treatments being administered in this nation today that are not given with free consent.
Today we can announce that there have been more than 40 million doses of the vaccine delivered in Australia. And that is a great achievement by the entire team who have been involved in delivering these doses all around the country.
Sarah and David have been registered nurses for the past 30 years and lost jobs which they love simply because, in their professional medical opinion, they were not prepared to be jabbed with an experimental vaccine.
It comes from a meeting with the president of a school council in my region. They are concerned that the school is facing staff shortages because of vaccine mandates.
We've had around 137,000 doses a day.
Sarah was terminated from a nursing position after 24 years. Her partner was terminated after 18 years of service.
When someone has a mortgage to pay, when someone has rent to pay, when someone has children that they need to look after, they have no option. It is coercion, and threats that they are actually taking these COVID vaccines under.
Just think about that. That's going all the way back to February to now, an average of 137,000 doses a day.
Sarah and David are now living off their limited savings and will soon join the Centrelink queue, which they have never done before, to pay their mortgage bills and feed their children because they're unable to find employment.
Minister, how are Northern Victorian schools expected to cope with staff shortages caused by vaccine mandates? It makes no sense to sacrifice valuable skills to a puritanical vaccine mandate when alternatives like rapid antigen testing are available.
And almost 100 per minute over the course of this extraordinarily ambitious vaccination program.
Her son has just completed year 12 and works as a lifeguard at 2 local pools, but can no longer do so. He also wants to go to university next year to study either nursing or paramedicine, but now can't unless he gets double jabbed. He also can't pursue his love of participation in musicals or attend venture scouting activities.
In Sydney today, Mr Deputy Speaker, inside, I cannot sing. I cannot dance because I'm unvaccinated.
And the outcome of that is Australia having one of the highest vaccination rates in the world.
Sarah's 16-year-old daughter has all completed her surf life-saving certificate, but can't volunteer now either. Her 10-year-old is the only child who can access a pool. However, this would be unsupervised.
Every day I'm contacted by constituents who are being denied healthcare because they are unvaccinated. In some cases, even children are turned away.
Based on the best possible medical advice, that we would extend that vaccination program to 12 to 15-year-olds. And that program has been going extremely well.
Another constituent who needs regular injections to avoid going blind is being denied treatment.
Bonnie, who having recovered from COVID 8 months ago, is fearful of being vaccinated and will lose her job as a hairdresser unless she can obtain an exemption.
Across northern Victoria, we've seen cancer diagnoses have fallen in the last 2 years. Not because there's less cancer, but because there's less screening. It seems we're killing the patient to cure the disease. Northern Victorian health professionals do not want to cancel these appointments, but they feel they're forced to do so.
And now we have taken the decision, based on the best possible medical advice through the TGA, that we'll be extending that vaccination program to 5 to 11-year-olds and giving parents the choice.
And Catherine and Rick, parents of 2 teenage girls who have decided to sell their business in order to set up a sustainable life on the land with friends so their daughters don't have to be vaccinated, at least until the daughters can make up their own mind, their own decision.
As a parent, there are no more important decisions that you make than those you make about the health and well-being of your children.
A visually impaired 5-year-old in Wodonga has had her eye appointment cancelled by her local specialist's office. She's not even eligible for the vaccine. She's collateral damage in this government's crusade against the unvaccinated.
Now, the other point I'd want to encourage all Australians about, and that is to go and get your booster shot.
Ahmed, a chef who now provides companionship and cleaning services instead of doing the work that he loves.
You are causing more stress and harm, suicides, breakup of families and loss of jobs, and putting people in this distress for what reason?
A psychologist in Mackay who does home consults via telehealth has to be vaccinated, double vaccinated, or she loses her career of 30 years.
So I want to encourage Australians, you're eligible for your booster, go and get it.
There are lots more people out there who were coerced, who had the jab just to get by.
Yeah, we are hearing story after story from people with these exact concerns who are told by their doctors that the concern is valid, but they're unable to provide an exemption regardless.
But to all those 5 and 11-year-olds, those brave 5 and 11-year-olds, they'll come to places just like here with Sylvie and the whole team and pharmacists and GPs and around the country. And they will now join this program, which is help keeping Australians safe.
Tonya, who was told by her GP of more than 30 years that she couldn't see her face-to-face unless she was vaccinated.
We have people who can't get to see a doctor or a dentist or a psychologist unless they have been double vaxxed.
The fact that we've achieved such a high rate of vaccination means we can look into 2022 with confidence.
The government has even gone so far as to send police to raid clinics of doctors who've been issuing exemptions.
The raid by authorised officers on his surgery recently led to him losing his licence, I understand, but also, perhaps more importantly, the seizure of confidential medical files.
What I do know is Australia is set up to live with this virus, to live together with this virus, and as we're seeing Australians come together as we get into Christmas.
One of the government's lines is that we must all get vaccinated for the sake of those who cannot get vaccinated. But in the very next breath, the government turns around and brands these very people who cannot get vaccinated as dirty anti-vaxxers and wants to destroy their lives.
Many people who have signed this petition are fully injected against COVID-19. We, the people, are not against injections. We're against government coercion and government-approved discrimination.
Only one state now has to get past that 80% mark in Western Australia, and they're not far away. They're only a few days away.
How can we have informed consent in this nation when we have doctors that are censored and silenced and face threat of deregistration if they decide to put up an alternate expert medical opinion?
Carolyn, a doctor who has decided to retire early so she can speak freely and advocate for patients, family and friends.
And the fact that we've got through this year, as we set it out as our task at the start of this year, to get to exactly where we are, that is, I want to say thank you to all Australians that have made that possible.
Doctors must be free to give their own opinion to their patients. The sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship is important, and we cannot have informed consent in this nation if our doctors are silenced, censored and face threat of deregistration, because that is exactly what is happening.
Countless people from the Forest Hill district and way beyond, across a wide range of occupations, have contacted me and expressed their despair and hopelessness that they are about to lose their livelihoods and don't know what they're going to do.
Plan, and I look forward to receiving further updates today from all Premiers and Chief Ministers about how they're keeping the deal with Australians. The National Plan was a deal with Australians. They rolled up their sleeves and we opened up the country. That was the deal. The Commonwealth Government, the Federal Government, is keeping that deal.
Many people, mostly returned travellers, have received vaccinations other than the few that are available in Victoria. They're unable to have these vaccines recognised by Australia's immunisation register and therefore are unable to work.
And Deanie, a school teacher, and her 13-year-old daughter who endured 4 weeks stranded in New South Wales, living in a stranger's caravan whilst trying to get back into Queensland to rejoin her husband and son.
And now by bringing 5 to 11-year-olds into that only further strengthens us to be able to deal with and live with this virus and live with it together as the National Plan set out many months ago. But Brendan, do you want to comment on that?
I note that Dr Nick Coatsworth, highly regarded medical person, is completely at odds with the rest of the medical profession by saying he's strongly against the need for children to be vaccinated. I have to say, so am I.
We have experts in this country, men like Professor Thomas Borody, with more letters after his name than the alphabet, men like Emeritus Professor Robert Clancy, that have not only been using these treatments on Australians, but have documented and shown that they are saving lives. They have documented and shown that they are keeping Australians out of hospital. And yet, an unelected group of unaccountable, faceless bureaucrats, many of them not even medical people, have come forward and have told those two medical geniuses, some of the highest qualified medical people in this country, they cannot use a treatment that they have demonstrated saving lives.
I appreciate greatly the work done by all the Premiers and Chief Ministers and seeing those national vaccination rates get to where they are.
For state governments to be saying to people that they must go and have this medical procedure done in order to keep their job is anathema. It is hurting people, a lot of people.
Every day, Victorians are lectured at, berated and punished by government MPs and representatives, despite the overwhelming number of people doing their very best and complying with the rules.
We've got one more state to get through that gate. As it's a bit like, you know, getting the sheep through the gate and into the run.
Here in Victoria, we have never seen a more divided and broken society.
I know of small business owners, cafe owners, who don't want to partake in the medical procedure, and they are going to have to shut their doors. Perhaps even some of them will go bankrupt in Queensland from the 17th of December.
We've got one more state to get through, and we're looking forward to that happening in the next few days. And that's an extraordinary effort. I mean, when you think about it, there are states in the Commonwealth that have not had the experience of COVID that New South Wales and Victoria have had, and the ACT. And in those three areas, of course, the vaccination rates accelerated because we were in lockdowns, and that's to be expected.
Victorians are living in fear of COVID-19, in fear of the police and authorities, in fear of having or sharing a point of view different to the government, in fear of segregation, in fear of others, even friends or neighbours.
Across those three states, they did not have the same COVID experience as New South Wales and Victoria and the ACT, and so it's not surprising, particularly in those states, in Queensland and WA, that it has been a harder task. But they've got about the task.
The result of the Premier's announcement on the 1st of October this year is that medical apartheid will be commencing in Victoria in a few days' time. Victoria will be a two-class society.
And I think they've done a great job to get to the point where we're before the end of the year and they're going to go past the 80% mark.
In my opinion, we are racing towards a totalitarian regime here in Victoria, and it has to stop.
Look, I'll take further advice on that. I haven't had the opportunity to review it.